You don't belong in first class. Let me see that. I knew it. This is my seat.
I assure you, you are mistaken.
You can't do this to me. I haven't done anything wrong.
Ma'am, you need to exit the aircraft immediately.
You don't belong in first class. Eleanor Whitman said it loud enough for the whole cabin to hear. The words cut through the soft hum of the aircraft like a knife through silk. Conversations died. Champagne glasses stopped halfway to lips. A man in a gray suit lowered his newspaper. A woman near the aisle reached for her phone, not because she wanted to help, but because she smelled a scandal. Monica Bennett stood in the narrow aisle of Skyhaven Airlines, Flight 447, one hand resting on the handle of her leather carry-on, the other holding a boarding pass for seat 1A, her seat. She did not raise her voice. She did not step back. She only looked at the woman blocking her way. Eleanor was in her mid-50s, polished from head to toe. Cream blazer, pearl earrings, blonde hair brushed into a shape that looked expensive and immovable. Her handbag sat on the seat tap beside her like a claim marker. She carried herself like someone who had never been asked to wait, never been told no, and never had to wonder whether a room would welcome her. Monica had wondered that all her life, but she had stopped asking permission years ago. "Mom," Monica said, calm and clear, "that is my assigned seat." Eleanor's mouth tightened. Her eyes moved over Monica's navy suit, her brown skin, her simple gold watch, the quiet confidence that did not beg to be noticed. Something about it offended her more than any loud argument could have. "Oh, please," Eleanor said. "I know what this is." A few passengers shifted. One man looked down at his laptop, pretending he had not heard. An older woman across the aisle pressed her lips together, troubled but silent. Monica extended the boarding pass. "Seat 1A," she said. Eleanor snatched it from her hand. The paper bent under her fingers. The cabin seemed to inhale. Ryan Collins, the young flight attendant near the galley, saw it happen. He froze for half a second. He was 26, knew enough to still believe every conflict could be softened with a smile, old enough to know that some customers could make a complaint sound like a career-ending weapon. "Mom," Ryan said carefully, stepping closer, "is there a problem?" Eleanor did not look at him. She held Monica's boarding pass up as if it were counterfeit money. "Yes, there is a problem," she said. "This woman is trying to take a first-class seat that clearly does not belong to her." Monica's face did not change, but her hand tightened around the handle of her bag. She had heard versions of that sentence before. In restaurants, in boardrooms, in investor meetings where men asked who she forked, after she had already introduced herself as the founder. In hotel lobbies where security guards watched her longer than anyone else. But this was different. This was her airline, and no one in that cabin knew it. Ryan glanced at the boarding pass. His eyes flickered. The scanner had already accepted it at the gate. He knew the document looked real. Still, Eleanor's voice carried the heavy confidence of privilege, and privilege often sounded like authority to people afraid of conflict. "Let me just check the system," he said. Eleanor gave a sharp laugh. "Check whatever you want," she said. "But people like her do this all the time. They print something at home, walk in like they own the place, and expect everyone else to be too afraid to say anything." That was when the first phone came up. Then another. Then another. Tiny red recording lights blinked across the cabin. Monica noticed them all. She also noticed the silence. That was what hurt most. Not Eleanor's voice, not the accusation. The silence. The careful, comfortable silence of people who knew something was wrong, but hoped someone else would carry the weight of saying so. The engines rumbled beneath the floor. The scent of leather and coffee hung in the air. Outside the oval windows, Seattle rain slid down the glass in thin silver lines. Monica took one slow breath. She could have ended it right there. One sentence, one title, one phone call. Instead, she waited, because power revealed too early only stops the moment. Power revealed at the right time exposes the truth. Ryan tapped quickly on his tablet, his brow creased. Eleanor leaned closer to Monica, lowering her voice just enough to make it cruel, but not enough to keep others from hearing. "You should be embarrassed," she said. "There are rules in places like this." Monica looked at her then, not with anger, with disappointment, the kind that lands heavier. "Yes," Monica said softly, "there are." For the first time, Eleanor's expression flickered, only for a second. Then she straightened, pointed toward the back of the plane, and said, "Then follow them." Economy is that way. The cabin went still. Ryan stopped typing. The older woman across the aisle covered her mouth. And Monica Bennett, the woman who had spent 12 years building Skyhaven Airlines from a rejected business plan into the fastest-growing carriers in America, stood in the aisle of her own first-class cabin, while strangers decided whether she belonged there. Ryan's fingers hovered above the tablet, but for a moment he could not make them move. The screen showed what he already suspected. Bennett, Monica, seat 1A, first class. Boarded, verified. There was no error, no duplicate assignment, no reason for the scene unfolding in front of him, except the one nobody in the cabin wanted to name. He swallowed and looked up. "Mrs. Whitman," he said carefully. "The seat is assigned to Miss Bennett." Eleanor stared at him as if he had spoken in another language. "That cannot be correct. It is what the system shows." "Then your system is wrong." Her voice snapped across the cabin. A baby cried somewhere in economy. A suitcase wheel bumped against the jet bridge floor, behind the last boarding passengers. But in first class, every sound seemed smaller now. Every breath had weight. Monica did not move. She watched Ryan. She saw the conflict in his face, the fear of a complaint, the fear of an entitled passenger, the fear of doing the right thing while being watched by people who might punish him for it. She knew that fear. It was not evil. But fear, left unchecked, often became someone else's humiliation. Eleanor stepped closer to Ryan and lowered her voice, but not enough. "Young man, I have flown more miles with this airline than most people spend in a lifetime. I know the regional director at Air Support Services. I know how these things work. You do not want to embarrass a loyal premium customer over a woman who clearly slipped through the cracks." Ryan's cheeks flushed. Across the aisle, Peter Lawson's phone was still raised. He was not even hiding it anymore. His thumb adjusted the zoom, catching Monica's face, Eleanor's finger, Ryan's trembling hands. In seat 2C, Margaret Ellis finally leaned forward. "Excuse me," she said. Her voice was soft, but it carried. Eleanor turned, irritated. Margaret was 67, with silver hair pinned neatly behind her ears, and reading glasses hanging from a chain at her neck. She looked like the kind of woman who had spent her life being polite. But there was steel in her eyes now. "The young woman has a valid ticket," Margaret said. "You should let her sit down." Eleanor's lips parted in disbelief. "This does not concern you. It concerns everyone listening to you." The cabin shifted, not loudly, not dramatically, but enough. A few passengers looked away from their screens. One man cleared his throat. Someone whispered, "She's right." Monica's gaze moved briefly to Margaret. A small nod. No smile, just recognition. Ryan took a breath. "Mrs. Whitman," he said again. "Stronger this time. I need you to step aside." Eleanor's face hardened. The polished mask cracked. Underneath it was anger, not confusion, not concern. Anger at being challenged in public. "I will not be spoken to like that by crew," she said. "And I will not sit here while standards collapse around me." Monica finally spoke. "Standards are not the same as prejudice." The words landed clean. No shouting, no trembling, just truth. Eleanor whipped her head toward her. "How dare you? How dare I ask to sit in the seat I paid for? You know exactly what you're doing." "Yes," Monica said. "I do." For 1 second, something passed over Eleanor's face. A flicker of uncertainty. She could feel it now. This woman was not intimidated. She was not begging. She was not performing outrage for the phones. She was documenting, remembering, measuring. That kind of calm made Eleanor uneasy. Ryan reached toward the call panel near the galley. "I'm going to ask the lead attendant to assist." Eleanor snapped. "Good. Bring someone who understands customer value." The words made Ryan flinch. customer value. Monica had heard that phrase in boardrooms, where people tried to justify cutting service to poorer neighborhoods. She had heard it from consultants who believed loyalty programs mattered more than human dignity. It was one of those clean phrases people used when they did not want to say what they really meant. The lead attendant, Karen Lowell, appeared from the forward galley. She was in her early 40s, neat uniform, tight bun, calm expression, shaped by years of handling difficult travelers. She looked from Eleanor to Monica, then to Ryan. "What's going on?" Eleanor answered first. "This woman is attempting to claim my seat, and your junior attendant seems unable to handle it." Ryan opened his mouth, but Karen raised one hand. Monica noticed that. A small thing, a dangerous thing. Karen turned to Monica. "Mom, may I see your boarding pass?" Eleanor held it up before Monica could answer. "I already checked it. It looks suspicious." Karen took the pass from Eleanor instead of Monica. Monica's eyes narrowed slightly. Not much. Just enough. Karen studied it, then looked at her tablet. Her face stayed professional, but her thumb moved slower than necessary. She was not trying to find the truth. She was trying to find a way to avoid trouble, and somehow Monica knew the easiest path would be asking her to move. Karen looked up. "Miss Bennett," she said, voice smooth. "I understand this is frustrating. We do have another available seat in first class. Seat 3D. It is very comfortable. I can also offer miles for the inconvenience." A silence opened. Ryan looked down. Margaret closed her eyes, disappointed. Peter's phone stayed fixed on Monica. Eleanor smiled. There it was, the quiet bargain. Give up what is yours so someone louder can feel comfortable. Monica let the silence stretch. Then she said, "Why would I move?" Karen blinked, to de-escalate the situation. Monica's voice stayed low. "I did not escalate it." No one spoke. The engines hummed deeper now. The plane was almost ready. Time was pressing against everyone. But Monica did not rush. She had spent her life being asked to make other people comfortable with her own discomfort. Not today. She looked at Karen, then at Ryan, then at Eleanor. "I will sit in seat 1A, she said. "Or I will remain standing here until someone explains on the record why a confirmed passenger is being moved to satisfy another passenger's prejudice." Karen Lowell's face changed by almost nothing. A slight pull at the corner of her mouth, a small blink. A pause too long for someone who had just been asked a simple question. But Monica saw it. So did Ryan. So did Margaret Ellis, who sat very still now, her hands folded over her purse, like she was holding herself back from standing. Karen lowered her voice. "Ms. Bennett, I'm trying to help you." "No," Monica said. "You're trying to make this easier for everyone except me." The words did not come out loud. They did not need to. They moved through the cabin with a cold kind of force. Peter Lawson's phone caught every second. His face had shifted from curiosity to discomfort. He had started recording because it was dramatic. Now he seemed to understand he was holding evidence. Eleanor let out a short laugh. "Oh, for heaven's sake. This is what I mean. Always turning everything into an accusation." Monica turned to her. "An accusation requires imagination," she said. "This only requires listening." A few passengers looked down. Shame had a sound in crowded places. It was the rustle of clothing, the clearing of throats, the sudden need to check a phone. Karen took a slow breath and forced her professional smile back into place. Mrs. Whitman is a frequent premium traveler. She has a preference for the forward cabin. "So do I," Monica said. Karen's smile tightened. Her travel profile indicates special handling. Monica looked at the empty seat beside Eleanor, then at the pass in Karen's hand, then back to Karen's eyes. "My boarding pass indicates ownership of this seat for this flight." Ryan's jaw flexed. He wanted to say something. He knew what the manual said. Confirmed seat assignments were not to be changed, because another passenger preferred a location. Not without consent, not under pressure, not like this. But Karen was his lead, and jobs had a way of making good people quiet. From the front galley, the captain's voice crackled through the intercom. "Flight attendants, please prepare for door closure." The announcement landed like a timer. Karen glanced toward the cockpit. Her shoulders stiffened. Delay reports mattered. On-time departures mattered. Complaints from high-status passengers mattered. Airlines measured almost everything, except the quiet damage done when a person was made to feel smaller in public. Eleanor sensed the pressure and leaned into it. "We are holding up the entire flight because a chief refuses to be reasonable," she said. Margaret finally unbuckled her seatbelt. The click was small, but everyone heard it. "I'm sorry," Margaret said, rising slowly, "but that is not what happened." Karen turned sharply. "Mom, please remain seated." "I will," Margaret said. "After I say this." That woman showed her ticket. Your system confirmed her ticket. She has been calm from the beginning. The only person causing a scene is the one blocking her seat. Eleanor's face reddened. "How dare you interfere?" Margaret looked at her with the steady sadness of someone who had lived long enough to recognize cruelty dressed as etiquette. "I stayed quiet too many times in my life," she said. "I'm not doing it again at my age." The cabin shifted again. This time it was stronger. A man in row 2 lowered his phone and said, "She's right." Another voice from behind them added, "Just let the lady sit down." Eleanor's control began to crack. Her fingers tightened around the strap of her handbag. The pearls at her neck trembled with her breath. Karen's eyes moved from passenger to passenger. The room was turning. Not fully, not bravely, but enough to frighten her. She lowered her voice and spoke to Monica through her teeth. "Miss Bennett, I need you to understand that refusal to follow crew instruction can become a federal issue." There it was, the sentence that changed the air. Monica went completely still. Ryan looked up fast. Margaret whispered, "Oh my." Karen had crossed a line. She knew at the moment the words left her mouth. She had taken a seating dispute, one with a clear answer, and wrapped it in the language of authority. Monica's voice came slow now. "Are you telling me that sitting in my assigned seat is a federal issue?" Karen did not answer. "Eleanor did. She's telling you to comply." Monica turned her head. "Comply with what?" No one moved. "Comply with giving up my seat?" Silence. "Comply with being accused of fraud?" Still silence. "Comply with being treated as if my presence needs special permission?" Her voice did not shake. That made it worse for them. Anger could be dismissed. Tears could be pitied. But calm truth had nowhere to go. Karen looked toward the galley. Her hand moved to the service phone. Ryan stepped closer. "Karen," he said quietly, "maybe we should just reseat Mrs. Whitman in 1B. That is her assigned seat." Karen shot him a warning glance. Eleanor heard it. 1B? Peter Lawson repeated from his seat, still recording. "Wait, her assigned seat is 1B? The cabin reacted at once, not loudly, but sharply, a low wave of murmurs. Eleanor's eyes widened. She looked at Karen as if betrayed. Monica looked at Eleanor's handbag resting on seat 1B. Then she looked back at Karen. "So she is not in my seat by mistake," Monica said. "She knows her seat is next to mine. She just does not want me beside her." The truth stood there, plain, ugly, undeniable. Eleanor's mouth opened, but no clean lie came out. Karen pressed the service phone to her ear, her face pale now. "We need assistance in first class," she said. "Passenger refusing crew instruction." Ryan stared at her. Margaret sat back down slowly, shaken, and Monica Bennett, still holding her carry-on in the aisle of the airline she secretly ran, reached into her jacket pocket and touched her phone. Not to reveal herself yet, not yet. First, she wanted to see how far they were willing to go. Captain William Harris stepped out of the cockpit with the controlled impatience of a man who had been pulled away from a checklist. He was 58, tall, silver-haired, and built like someone who believed authority should arrive before explanation. His uniform was crisp. His jaw was tight. His eyes moved across the cabin quickly, taking in the phones, the standing passenger, the lead attendant, and Eleanor Whitman, seated near the front, with one hand pressed dramatically against her chest. "What's the issue?" he asked. Karen answered before anyone else could breathe. "Captain, we have a passenger refusing crew instruction. Seat dispute. She will not accept an alternate first-class seat, and the situation is delaying departure." Monica watched the captain's face as Karen spoke. She knew that look. Decision first. Facts later. Captain Harris turned to Monica. His eyes were not openly hostile. That almost made it worse. They were tired, impatient, and already leaning toward the easiest version of the story. "Mom," he said, "I'm going to need you to cooperate with my crew." Monica held his gaze. "I have cooperated. I showed my boarding pass. Your system confirmed my seat. I asked to sit down." Eleanor leaned into the aisle. "She's twisting the entire situation," she said. "I have been nothing but patient while she stood here making everyone uncomfortable." Margaret Ellis made a sharp sound under her breath. "Patient?" she said. "You accused her of fraud." Eleanor ignored her. Captain Harris lifted one hand. "Everyone please remain calm." That phrase always sounded fair until it was used to flatten the truth. Peter Lawson's phone was still recording, but his expression had changed. The amusement was gone. His brows were drawn together. He had seen enough to know that this was not a misunderstanding. It was a test of who would be believed. Ryan stepped forward, his voice quiet but urgent. "Captain, the passenger in 1A is Miss Bennett. Her ticket is valid. Mrs. Whitman is assigned to 1B. Karen's head snapped toward him. "Ryan." The warning in her voice was clear, but Ryan did not step back. His hands shook, yet his face had settled into something stronger than fear. "She should be seated," he said. "That is what the record shows." For the first time, Captain Harris hesitated. Only briefly. Then Eleanor spoke again, louder now, sensing she was losing control. "This is unbelievable. I have supported this airline for years. I know executives in this industry, and now I'm being treated as if I did something wrong, because I questioned a suspicious situation." Monica's voice cut in. "You did not question a situation. You questioned my right to exist in it." The cabin went silent again. The words were simple. They were not polished for cameras. They were not dramatic for effect. They came from a place older than this flight, older than this cabin, older than Eleanor's outrage. Captain Harris shifted his weight. "Miss Bennett," he said, softer but still firm, "I understand this feels personal." "It is personal," Monica said, "but it is also procedural, and that is what should concern you." His eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" "I mean your crew is attempting to move a confirmed passenger from her paid seat because another passenger objects to sitting beside her. That is not de-escalation. That is participation." Karen's face drained slightly. Eleanor scoffed. "Oh, now we're making speeches." "No," Monica said. "We are making a record." That was when Eleanor's confidence flickered again. A record. The phones, the witnesses, Ryan's statement, Margaret's voice. Every piece of it was beginning to form a shape Eleanor could no longer control. Captain Harris looked toward Karen. "Is there an operational reason, Ms. Bennett cannot sit in 1A?" Karen opened her mouth. Nothing came out at first. Then she said, "The concern is cabin harmony." Monica almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Cabin harmony," she repeated. Margaret shook her head slowly. "That is a shameful phrase for what is happening here." Eleanor snapped toward her. "Mind your business." Margaret did not flinch. "At my age, decency is my business." A few passengers murmured in agreement. Peter finally lowered his phone just enough to speak. "Captain, I've been recording since the beginning." She showed her pass. Mrs. Whitman grabbed it. The crew tried to move Ms. Bennett even after the system confirmed the seat. "You may want to think carefully before this goes any further." The captain's eyes moved to the phone, then to the other phones, then to Monica. He was beginning to understand. Not everything, not yet, but enough to feel the ground shifting under his polished shoes. Karen whispered, "Captain, if we don't close the door soon, we may lose our departure slot." There it was again. Time, pressure, convenience. The old machinery that turned injustice into policy because nobody wanted a delay report. Captain Harris exhaled through his nose. "Miss Bennett," he said, "would you be willing to step into the jet bridge for a private conversation?" Monica looked at him for a long moment. "A private conversation after public humiliation." His face tightened. "It may help resolve this." "No," Monica said, one word. Clean, final. Eleanor's eyes widened. Karen stiffened. The captain's voice cooled. "Mom, Refusing a direct request from the captain can create serious consequences. Monica reached into her jacket pocket, slowly, not aggressively. Every camera followed her hand. Ryan held his breath. She took out her phone, unlocked it, and opened a contact labeled Avery Mitchell, Chief Operating Officer. Her thumb hovered above the call button. Then she looked at Captain Harris, not with anger, but with the tired authority of someone who had finally seen enough. "Before you decide what consequences look like," she said, "I suggest you ask yourself one question." The cabin seemed to stop breathing. Monica's voice dropped. "Who exactly are you removing from this plane?" Captain Harris did not answer right away. For the first time since he had stepped into the cabin, he looked at Monica Bennett as if he had actually begun to see her. Not the seat, not the delay, not the complaint. Her. Eleanor broke the silence with a brittle laugh. "What is that supposed to mean?" Monica did not look at her. She pressed the call button. The phone rang once, twice. Then a woman answered, sharp and awake. "Monica?" The name moved through the cabin like a draft under a locked door. Ryan's eyes widened. Karen's face went still. Captain Harris blinked. Monica kept the phone at her ear, but her gaze stayed on the captain. "Avery," she said. "I'm on Flight 447 to Atlanta. First class cabin. Seat 1A, a pause. Then Avery Mitchell's voice changed. "What happened?" Monica looked at Eleanor, then at Karen, then at the captain. "I am being prevented from sitting in my confirmed seat. A passenger assigned to 1B accused me of fraud, took my boarding pass from my hand, and stated I do not belong in first class. Crew confirmed my seat, then asked me to move to another seat to preserve cabin harmony. The captain is now considering removing me from the aircraft." No one breathed. The words were clean, factual, worse than anger. Avery's voice dropped. "Is Captain Harris present?" Captain Harris straightened as if someone had tugged an invisible line through his spine. Monica held out the phone. "For you." He stared at it, then he took it. "This is Captain Harris." The cabin watched his face. At first it was stern, then tight, then pale. "Yes, Mom," he said. "A beat, I understand. Another beat, no, I was not aware." His eyes flicked to Monica. This time the look was different. Not irritation, recognition, fear, maybe. Not fear of Monica as a person. Fear of what his own decisions had just revealed. He handed the phone back with careful hands. Eleanor frowned. "What is happening?" Monica ended the call. Then she slipped the phone into her jacket pocket. Captain Harris cleared his throat. "Miss Bennett," he said, and his voice had lost its command. "I owe you an apology." Eleanor's mouth fell open. Karen looked down. Ryan stared at the floor, shame and relief battling across his young face. Monica did not move. "An apology for what, Captain?" The question struck harder than a shout. He swallowed. "For how this situation was handled." "That is not specific." Margaret Ellis closed her eyes, as if the words had touched something old in her. Captain Harris took a breath. "For allowing a confirmed passenger to be challenged without cause. For considering removal when the record supported you. For failing to stop a situation that should have been stopped immediately." Monica looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, "And why did that happen?" The captain's jaw tightened. He knew the answer. Everyone knew the answer. But knowing a truth and saying it in public were two different tests of character. He looked toward Eleanor, then toward Karen, then back at Monica. Because assumptions were made. Monica's voice stayed soft. About what? The cabin was silent enough to hear the air vents. Captain Harris said nothing. Ryan lifted his head. "About whether she belonged," he said. His voice cracked on the last word, but he said it. Karen flinched. Eleanor snapped, "Oh, this is ridiculous." Monica finally turned to her. "No," she said. "This is familiar." Eleanor's face hardened again, but the old confidence was gone. Her power had depended on the room believing her. The room no longer did. Peter Lawson lowered his phone slowly. "Ms. Bennett," he said, almost whispering. "Are you someone with the airline?" Monica looked at him, then at the rows of faces waiting for an answer. She had planned to fly quietly. She had planned to observe, take notes, attend the Atlanta merger meeting, and return with a clearer picture of what needed to be fixed. But sometimes truth did not wait for a boardroom. Sometimes it stood in an aisle while people recorded it on their phones. Captain Harris closed his eyes for 1 second. Karen seemed to stop breathing. Ryan already knew. The phone call had told him enough. Monica reached into her briefcase and removed a matte black identification card. No shine, no theatrics. Just her name, her title, and the Skyhaven crest embossed in silver. She held it where the captain could see. Monica Bennett, founder and chief executive officer, Skyhaven Airlines. Eleanor stared at the card. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. The cabin went completely still. Monica's voice was low, controlled, final. "I did not steal this seat," she said. "I built this airline." The words did not explode. They settled, heavy, permanent. Eleanor's face drained of color so quickly, Margaret reached for the armrest. Karen's shoulders dropped as if the uniform itself had to become too heavy. Captain Harris looked at the floor. Ryan covered his mouth with one hand, not in shock, but in grief over how close he had come to helping the wrong side. Monica looked around the cabin, at the phones, at the witnesses, at the people who had stayed silent and the few who had not. Then her voice softened. "This is not about making someone afraid because I have a title," she said. "It is about asking why I needed one before some of you believed I deserved respect." No one answered, because this time, silence was not comfortable. It was confession. Eleanor Whitman sat frozen in seat 1B, her hand still resting on the handbag that had started the whole thing. Only now it looked less like a symbol of status and more like evidence. Her face had gone pale beneath her makeup. The sharp confidence in her eyes had collapsed into something smaller. Panic, calculation, fear. She looked from Monica to the captain, then to Karen, searching for one person who might still protect the story she had tried to build. No one did. Captain Harris turned toward her. "Mrs. Whitman," he said, his voice measured, "I need you to gather your belongings and step into the jet bridge." Eleanor blinked. "What?" "We need to address this off the aircraft." Her mouth opened slightly, then closed. She gave a short, breathless laugh. The kind people use when they are trying to pretend reality has not reached them yet. "You cannot be serious." I am a premium customer." Monica's eyes stayed on her. "So am I," she said. The words were quiet, but they cut clean. Eleanor's face tightened. "I made a mistake." Margaret Ellis looked up from across the aisle. "No," she said softly. "You made a choice." That sentence hit harder than any announcement could have. Eleanor turned toward Margaret, wounded and angry. But Margaret did not look away. Her hands trembled a little, but her gaze held. She was not enjoying this. That mattered. She was not watching a downfall for entertainment. She was witnessing accountability, and it made her sad. Ryan stepped forward carefully. "Mrs. Whitman," he said, "I can help with your bag." "Do not touch my things," Eleanor snapped. Then she realized how she sounded. The phones were still out. Peter Lawson's hand was steady now. The red recording light reflected in his glasses. Eleanor lowered her voice. "I am sorry," she said, turning to Monica. "This got out of hand." Monica studied her. The cabin waited for forgiveness like it was owed on schedule. But forgiveness was not a customer service response. It was not something to be demanded because an apology arrived late. "What exactly is you sorry for?" Monica asked. Eleanor swallowed. For the confusion, Monica did not blink. There was no confusion. The words landed flat and final. Eleanor's eyes watered, but not from remorse. Not yet. This was fear. Fear of consequences. Fear of being seen. Fear of losing the version of herself she had spent years presenting to rooms like this. Karen shifted near the galley, her face drawn. She looked at Monica, then at Ryan. "I should have handled it differently," Karen said. Monica turned to her. "Yes," she replied, "you should have." Karen's lips pressed together. "I was trying to keep the cabin calm." "No," Monica said. "You were trying to keep the loudest person comfortable." Karen looked down. That was the part no training manual liked to say out loud. Bias did not always arrive screaming. Sometimes it arrived as convenience, as speed. as a desire to avoid complaint from the person who seemed more powerful. Monica stepped aside just enough to clear the aisle. "Mrs. Whitman," Captain Harris said again, firmer now. "Please come with me." Eleanor slowly picked up her handbag. The same pearl bracelet that had flashed when she snatched Monica's boarding pass now shook against her wrist. She rose. No one clapped, no one cheered. That made it worse. The silence gave her no performance to fight against, just consequence. As she moved past Monica, Eleanor stopped. For 1 second, their shoulders were almost level. "I did not know who you were," Eleanor whispered. Monica looked at her, and for the first time, something like pain moved behind her eyes. "That is the problem," she said. "You thought it mattered." Eleanor had no answer. Captain Harris led her toward the aircraft door. Karen followed 2 steps behind, speaking quietly into her headset. Ryan remained near Monica, unsure whether to apologize, explain, or disappear. He chose honesty. "Miss Bennett," he said, voice low. "I should have spoken up sooner." Monica looked at him. He seemed younger now. Not because he was weak, but because he was learning in public, and learning in public could be brutal. "Yes," she said. "You should have." His face fell. Then she added, "But you did speak up. Remember how it felt before you did. That is where the work begins." Ryan nodded slowly. His eyes were wet, but he did not wipe them. Margaret reached across the aisle and touched Monica's sleeve lightly. "I am sorry," she said, "for the silence before I found my voice." Monica's expression softened. "Thank you for finding it." Outside the aircraft door, Eleanor's voice rose in the jet bridge, muffled, defensive, breaking apart. Inside the cabin, the air changed. It did not become peaceful. Not yet. It became honest. And honesty, Monica knew, was often the first uncomfortable pulse toward healing. The jet bridge door remained open, and every person in first class could hear pieces of Eleanor Whitman's voice breaking through the metal frame. "This is completely unnecessary. I already apologized. You people are destroying my reputation." Captain Harris answered in a low tone no one could fully hear. Karen stood beside him with her tablet pressed to her chest, her face stiff and colorless. 2 gate supervisors had arrived now. One of them, a broad-shouldered man named Thomas Reed, listened without interrupting. The other, a younger woman named Natalie Price, kept taking notes with quick, nervous movements. Inside the cabin, Monica finally stepped into seat 1A, her seat. The leather was cool beneath her hand. Her briefcase slid neatly under the footwell. The space was quiet now, but not peaceful. It carried the residue of what had just happened, like smoke after a fire. Ryan approached with a glass of water. "Miss Bennett," he said gently, "would you like anything else before we continue boarding?" Monica looked at the glass. For a moment, she remembered the first year of Skyhaven. No lounges, no private offices. Just borrowed desks, unpaid invoices, and people telling her she was dreaming too big. Back then, respect was not something offered. It was something she had to build into the walls before anyone else believed it belonged there. She accepted the water. "Thank you, Ryan." His shoulders loosened at the sound of his name. Across the aisle, Margaret Ellis wiped the corner of her eye with a folded tissue. She tried to hide it, but Monica saw. So did Peter Lawson, who had stopped recording and was now staring at his phone as if ashamed of what it contained. "I posted part of it," Peter said quietly. Monica turned to him, his face tightened. "At first I thought it was just another airport scene. People arguing. Something dramatic. I didn't think about what it would mean to you." Monica held his gaze. "Did you post it to help?" He looked down. "No, the honesty cost him something. I posted it because people watch things like that," he said. "I'm sorry." Monica took a slow breath. "Then use the rest of what you recorded responsibly." Peter nodded. "I will." At the aircraft door, the conversation in the jet bridge sharpened. Eleanor's voice rose again. "I want her fired." Then silence. A heavy silence. Even from inside the cabin, everyone understood who she meant. Karen. Monica's eyes moved toward the door. Karen stepped back into view just enough for Monica to see her profile. The lead attendant looked stunned. A few minutes earlier, she had been bending the rules to protect Eleanor's comfort. Now Eleanor was trying to throw her away to protect herself. That was how false power worked. It used people, then abandoned them. Captain Harris entered the cabin alone. His face had changed. Not fixed, not redeemed, but stripped of certainty. "Miss Bennett," he said, stopping beside her seat. "Mrs. Whitman has been removed from the flight pending review. Gate staff will rebook her after security documentation is complete. I have also notified operations that this flight will depart with a delay report connected to a passenger misconduct incident." Monica watched him. "And the crew report?" He swallowed. "It will include the full sequence of events." "The full sequence," Monica repeated. "Yes, Mom." Ryan stood a few feet behind him. Karen remained at the doorway, frozen between the jet bridge and the cabin. Monica looked at the captain, then past him. "Karen should write her own statement," she said. "Ryan should write his. Separate reports, no coaching, no edits." Captain Harris nodded. "Understood." Karen's eyes lifted. Shame moved across her face. But beneath it was something else. Fear. She knew this might cost her. Maybe it should. But Monica did not want a convenient sacrifice. She wanted the truth. Monica's voice softened slightly. "This airline cannot heal by hiding behind one villain." The captain absorbed that. So did everyone near enough to hear. She continued, "Mrs. Whitman started this. But she did not carry it alone. Every person who had a chance to stop it must understand why they did not." Karen's lips trembled. "I was afraid of the complaint," she said suddenly. Her voice came out raw. "I knew the seat was yours. I knew it, but she was loud and the door was still open, and I thought if I could just move you a few rows back, the flight would leave on time." She looked at Monica directly now. "I made your dignity the cost of our schedule." No one moved. That was the first real apology Monica had heard. Not polished, not defensive, not safe. Real. Monica nodded once. "Put that in your report." Karen wiped under one eye. "I will." The captain turned to the galley and pressed the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Harris. We apologize for the delay. We will be departing shortly. I also want to acknowledge that a passenger in our first-class cabin was treated in a way that did not meet the standards of this airline or basic human respect that is being documented and addressed." His voice paused, then came back quieter. "Thank you for your patience." The intercom clicked off. For several seconds, there was no sound but the airflow above the seats and the distant rumble of ground equipment outside. Then, Margaret spoke, not loudly. That was a start. Monica looked out the window. Rain streaked the glass. Beyond it, workers in reflective vests guided luggage carts through the gray Seattle morning. Ordinary people doing ordinary jobs. The people she had built this airline for. Her phone buzzed. "Avery Mitchell, board notified. Legal standing by. Atlanta meeting can be delayed. Your call?" Monica stared at the message. Then she typed back. "No delay. We fly. Then we fix the company." Flight 447 pushed back from the gate 34 minutes late. No one complained, not out loud. The aircraft rolled slowly across the wet tarmac, its wings cutting through the gray Seattle morning. Inside first class, the energy had changed. The same leather seats, the same soft lights, the same polished trays and folded napkins. But the air felt stripped bare now. People who had watched too long without speaking sat with their thoughts pressed against their ribs. Monica Bennett sat by the window in seat 1A, her seatbelt fastened, her hands resting still in her lap. She did not look victorious. That surprised Ryan. He had expected power to look sharper after the reveal, colder, maybe angry. But Monica looked quiet, heavy, like someone carrying not just what happened to her, but every version of it that had happened to people with no title, no executive card, no Avery Mitchell waiting on the other end of the phone. As the plane climbed through the low clouds, Ryan stood near the galley and watched the cabin with new eyes. He saw Margaret Less staring at her folded hands. He saw Peter Lawson typing slowly, deleting, then typing again. He saw Karen Lowell seated on the jump seat, shoulders straight, face pale, holding herself together by force. The seatbelt sign chimed off. Ryan stepped forward to begin service, but Monica raised one hand gently. Ryan, he stopped. Yes, Ms. Bennett? Before service starts, please ask Karen to join us for a moment. His throat tightened. Of course. Karen came down the aisle with the careful steps of someone walking toward a judge. But Monica did not look like a judge. She looked like a leader, and somehow that was harder. Karen stopped beside seat 1A, Ms. Bennett. Monica gestured toward the empty aisle space. Stand where you can hear me. Both of you. Ryan moved closer. Karen nodded. Monica kept her voice low. Not private, but not theatrical. I want you to understand something. This is not the first time a passenger has been misjudged on an airplane. It will not be the last. But what happened today shows us exactly where systems fail. Karen swallowed. Yes, Mom, they fail when a loud person is treated as credible because they look familiar. They fail when a quiet person is treated as suspicious because they do not match someone's idea of wealth. They fail when employees confuse comfort with safety. Ryan looked down. Monica's tone softened. I am not saying this to shame you. Shame makes people hide. I need you to learn. Karen's eyes filled again, but she held Monica's gaze. I understand, do you? Karen took a breath. I think I'm starting to. Monica nodded once. That is more honest. Across the aisle, Margaret listened with her chin slightly lifted. She had spent most of her adult life in classrooms, teaching American history to teenagers who often thought justice was something completed long before they were born. She knew better. Justice was not a chapter. It was a practice. Peter looked up from his phone. Ms. Bennett, he said, may I ask something? Monica turned. Yes. I want to post the full recording. Not a clip, the whole thing. I can blur faces if needed. I do not want to turn your pain into content. The cabin seemed to wait with him. Monica studied his face. There was no easy answer. Public truth could educate. It could also wound again. Viral outrage could demand accountability. It could also flatten real people into symbols. Send it to Skyhaven Legal first, she said, and to the passengers who spoke up if they agree. Truth matters, so does consent. Peter nodded slowly. That makes sense. Margaret leaned toward him. I'll give a statement. Her voice was steady now. Peter looked at her. Thank you. She shook her head. Do not thank me for being late to courage. That line settled over the cabin. Ryan stepped back toward the galley, but Monica stopped him again. One more thing. He turned. When you write your report, do not make yourself the hero. Do not make yourself the villain either. Tell the truth. That is how repair starts. Ryan nodded. I will. Karen whispered. What happens to us now? Monica looked out the window. The plane had risen above the clouds. Sunlight spread across the wing, bright and almost severe. That depends on the truth, she said, and on what you do after telling it. Karen closed her eyes briefly. For the first time that morning, she did not look afraid of punishment. She looked afraid of who she had been. That was different. That could become change. Monica picked up her tablet and opened the Atlanta merger file. The numbers were still there. The deal still mattered. Routes, jobs, expansion, billions in future revenue. But now there was another line in her mind, one no spreadsheet captured. A company could grow fast and still grow wrong. She tapped a blank page and typed a new heading, Emergency Culture Review. Then beneath it, she wrote 3 words, respect before for status. By the time Flight 447 began its descent into Atlanta, the story had already outrun the aircraft. Peter Lawson had not posted the full video. Not yet. But someone in the terminal had captured Eleanor being escorted off the jet bridge. Another passenger had written a short post about what happened before takeoff. A few blurred photos were already moving through social media with half-complete captions and loud opinions. Monica Ferser knew how fast a story could become a weapon. She also knew silence could be a weapon, too. Her phone buzzed again. Avery Mitchell. Local press asking questions. Board members concerned. Legal recommends statement within the hour. Monica read the message twice. Then she looked across the aisle. Margaret Ellis was asleep now, or pretending to be. Her hands rested loosely over her purse. The tissue was still tucked between her fingers. Peter sat behind her, staring out the window, with the stiff posture of a man thinking about the kind of person he had almost been. Karen had finished service with quiet precision. No forced warmth, no performance, just care. She had served Monica the same way she served everyone else. That should not have felt meaningful, but after what happened, it did. Ryan had checked on passengers with a steadier voice. When an older man in row 3 asked for coffee, Ryan knelt slightly so the man could hear him better over the engine noise. Small dignity, small repair. Monica typed back to Avery, prepare a holding statement. No excuses, no denial. Acknowledge investigation. Center dignity. I will speak after landing. The reply came fast. Understood. The wheels lowered with a deep mechanical groan. The cabin lights dimmed. Outside, Atlanta spread below them in late afternoon gold, highways curling like silver ribbons through the city. Captain Harris came over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, we have begun our final approach into Atlanta. We appreciate your patience today. His voice paused. Some delays are mechanical, some are weather, and some are human. Today's delay was human. We will do better. No one applauded. It was not that kind of moment. But Monica looked toward the cockpit door and nodded once. The plane touched down hard enough to make a few passengers grip their armrests. Tires screamed against the runway. The engines reversed with a roar that filled the cabin, then faded into a long rolling breath. When they reached the gate, no one rushed to stand. That was unusual. Americans stood the second a plane stopped. It was almost instinct. But this cabin waited, maybe out of respect, maybe out of uncertainty, maybe because everyone understood that they had landed with more than luggage to carry. The seatbelt sign chimed off. Monica unbuckled. Ryan approached. Miss Bennett, he said. Ground operations is waiting at the door. I know. Karen stood beside him. Her report folder was in her hand. I wrote it, she said. Monica looked at the folder. All of it? Karen nodded. Including what I said about the complaint. Including the part where I knew the seat was yours. Her voice trembled, but she did not look away. Monica accepted the folder. Thank you. Karen swallowed. I do not know if I deserve that. Truth is not about deserving thanks, Monica said. It is about becoming responsible. Karen nodded slowly. At the aircraft door, Thomas Reed waited with Natalie Price. Behind them stood 2 corporate security officers and a woman in a charcoal suit who introduced herself as Denise Walker from Skyhaven Legal. Miss Bennett, Denise said, her eyes moving over Monica's face with concern. Are you all right? Monica stepped into the jet bridge. The air was cooler there, less polished, more real. No, she said, but I am clear. Denise did not try to soften it. Understood. Behind Monica, Margaret emerged from the aircraft with her carry-on. She paused beside her. Ms. Bennett, she said, I was a teacher for 38 years. I used to tell my students courage feels late right up until the moment you use it. Monica's expression softened. That is a lesson worth keeping. Margaret touched her arm gently. So is yours. Peter came next, holding his phone in both hands. I sent the full file to the legal contact, he said. No edits, no caption, just what happened. Monica nodded. Thank you for correcting course. He looked down. I wish I had started there. So do I, Monica said. But starting late is still better than staying wrong. That sentence stayed with him. At the end of the jet bridge, a small crowd had formed near the gate windows. Some were passengers. Some were airport staff. A few held phones. Whispers followed Monica as she stepped into the terminal. That is her. That is the CEO. That is the woman from the video. Monica stopped just before the gate podium. Avery Mitchell had arrived from Atlanta operations, breathless but composed, tablet in one hand, blazer open from walking fast. Monica, she said quietly, the merger team is asking whether you still want to proceed. Monica looked through the glass wall at the Skyhaven aircraft parked outside. Her aircraft. Her company. Her responsibility. Yes, she said. We proceed, Avery blinked. After all this? Monica's eyes stayed on the plane, especially after this. Then she turned toward the waiting staff. Call an emergency leadership meeting for tonight. Crew training, Passenger rights, complaint escalation, bias response, all of it. No department exempt. Avery nodded, already typing. Monica's voice lowered, but the steel in it sharpened. And find Eleanor Whitman's employer. If her company contracts with us, suspend the relationship pending review. Denise looked up. That may affect ground coverage in 3 cities. Monica faced her. Then we find coverage that does not require our passengers to be humiliated. No one argued. Outside, the rain had stopped. The runway shone under the fading sun. Monica Bennett walked through the terminal. Not faster, not louder, not grander than before. But everyone who watched her understood something now. Power was not proven by taking a seat from someone else. Sometimes power was refusing to give up your own. The emergency leadership meeting began that night in a glass conference room overlooking the Atlanta runway. Outside, Skyhaven aircraft moved through the darkness, their lights blinking red and white against the black sky. Inside, no one touched the coffee. No one joked. No one checked out early. Monica Bennett sat at the head of the table, still wearing the same Navy suit from the flight. Her face was calm, but her eyes carried the weight of the day. Around her sat Avery Mitchell, Denise Walker, Captain Harris on video from Seattle, senior managers from training, operations, legal, customer care, and human resources. The video played once. Then the room stayed silent. On the screen, Eleanor Whitman's voice echoed again. You don't belong in first class. Monica looked at every person in the room. That sentence did not begin with Eleanor, she said. It began in every system that taught her she could say it and expect support. A training director lowered her eyes. A regional manager shifted in his chair. Avery stopped typing. Monica continued. We are not here to protect the brand. We are here to protect people. The brand will survive only if people do. That night, Skyhaven changed course, not with a slogan, with policy. Every passenger removal involving a verified seat assignment would require a documented operational reason. Every discrimination complaint would trigger immediate review by an independent response team. Crew members would be trained to recognize bias, not as a political issue, but as a safety issue, a service issue, and a human issue. Ryan Collins kept his job, but entered a mentorship program, and later became one of the strongest voices in passenger dignity training. He told new hires the truth. I waited too long, he would say. Do not wait for power to reveal itself before would you defend someone's dignity. Karen Lowell was suspended during the investigation. She returned months later, not as lead attendant, but as a trainee again. Some people called that humiliating. Karen called it necessary. On her first flight back, she stopped by every row with the same warmth. Not perfect, but present. Test. Trying. Captain Harris accepted formal discipline and requested to join the leadership review panel. He said little at first. Then one day, in a training room full of pilots, he admitted what had changed him. I thought I was managing a delay, he said. I was actually standing inside someone else's humiliation. Eleanor Whitman's company lost its Skyhaven contract pending review. Eleanor herself faced employment consequences and a civil complaint. But Monica refused to make the story only about punishment. Punishment could end a career. It could not rebuild a culture. 6 months later, Monica stood inside a Skyhaven training center in Atlanta before a group of new crew members. Behind her was no dramatic image, no viral headline, no photo of Eleanor. Just 3 words on a screen. Respect before status. Monica looked at the room. Young faces, older faces, people starting over, people trying to rise. You will meet passengers on their worst days, she said. Tired, scared, grieving, late, confused. You will also meet people whose power is invisible. But none of that should matter. Your job is not to guess who deserves respect. Your job is to give it first. In the back row, Margaret Ellis sat as an invited guest, hands folded, eyes bright. Peter Lawson was there too, filming with permission this time, not to chase a scandal, but to preserve a lesson. Ryan stood by the door in uniform, listening like every word belonged to him. Monica paused, her voice softened. A seat is just a seat, but dignity is never just dignity. It is the line between being seen as a problem and being seen as a person. The room stayed quiet, not empty quiet, healing quiet, the kind that lets truth settle where excuses used to live. And somewhere above Atlanta, a Skyhaven plane lifted into the evening sky, carrying strangers who would never know how close one airline had come to forgetting what service really meant. Monica watched it rise through the glass. She did not smile. She breathed, because justice was not a single moment. It was a practice. A decision repeated by ordinary people when no camera was pointed at them. If this story reminded you that respect should never depend on appearance, wealth, status, or skin color, please like this video, subscribe for more powerful stories, and comment these 3 words in English. Never stay silent.